Hi, my name is Sarah Silva and welcome to Green Star Farm. We're out here today to talk about working dogs. I have a couple different types of working dogs here on the ranch. We have livestock guardian dogs and herding dogs. I've been working with dogs since I was a teenager, actually. I've done a lot of behavioral dog training. Even before I was a rancher, I worked with dogs and actually had a pet sitting company and dog training and dog walking company. So have had many years experience with lots of different dog breeds, both small and large and all different types of working classes. And but today we're going to focus on livestock guardian dogs and a little bit on herding dogs and sort of the different things that would be helpful for a new person starting either with herding dogs or with livestock guardian dogs. We're only going to talk about guardian dogs and herding dogs, but there are also cart dogs and hunting dogs and lots of different types of dogs that I'm totally going to skip over today. The dogs for ranches, the working dog, the ranch dog, the herding dog, they're harder to come by. Harder to come by because often we are breeding for companion dogs in the United States and we don't have a large selection of good working dogs. It was really hard for me when I first started to finding working dogs. Just to find a herding dog. I could find herding dog breeds, but their parents weren't actually working. So one main thing when you're looking for herding dogs and livestock guardian dogs is to make sure the parents are working. Make sure the grandparents are working if you can. It's really important to know what the bloodlines of your dogs are, what they come from, what kind of, if you can meet the dogs. Generally, I don't let everybody meet my livestock guardian dogs, but definitely if you have herding dogs, definitely meet those parents if you can, even if it's a virtual meet. You can see a lot just by meeting the dogs. A lot of herding dogs people will import from Europe as well as livestock guardian dogs. My herding dogs are mostly red heelers. I like the cattle dogs because I raise pigs and goats as well as sheep and chickens. And I found that the cattle dogs are a little tougher with the breeds that will turn on them, the species. Like, for example, a border collie is a softer dog and they'll herd your sheep and they'll herd chickens too. But if a buck or a boar turn on them, they sometimes don't know how to deal with that. Where a heeler actually will follow the heels of those tougher animals and they'll actually go and nip at them if they need to move them. They're a little more aggressive and stubborn and they'll keep moving those bigger stock. You'll see sometimes when I'm walking around the ranch, my heelers will pick a fight with a pig just on a fence line, just so that they're always constantly making sure those pigs know that regardless of their size, they are always ready to push them around. And I'm talking 900-pound pigs versus a 30-pound dog, and they make sure they're going to be able to do it. When you're looking for your livestock guardian dogs, it's really good to not only make sure the dogs come from working lines, but also that the working lines, the parents have been tested. Make sure they have had x-rays, not just a health check at the vet, but like x-rays, that they have the Orthopedic Foundation of America certifications on their dogs. Then you know your investment's worthwhile. You don't want to put time into these dogs and then find out, 4 or 5 years down the line, or 6 or 7 when your dog's like perfect, that he's gonna or she's gonna have hip dysplasia or arthritis or tendonitis and all these things that these larger breeds and any breed really can have. You want to make sure that you're getting your dogs from someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to breeding the dogs and has some experience breeding dogs in general, and preferably experience breeding livestock guardian dogs and raising them too. Be careful, Great Pyrenees is a really common breed you'll see in the United States, and that's because there's a lot of companion animal breeders for Great Pyrenees. So, you'll see the Great Pyrenees and you won't necessarily know unless you see that the parents are working. All my dogs come from working lines. I have a variety of breeds. Most of them are not purebreds, and that's because mostly what I was searching for were bloodlines that had a history of working with poultry. Because poultry dogs are actually a lot harder to come by and really a lot harder to train. And that's true with your herding dog and your livestock guardian dog. Poultry is probably one of the most difficult things to train for, because they're fluffy and they're, they smell good, they run around, they do lots of very exciting things that are very exciting for a young dog. So we've got a purebred Maremma here. We have some half GPs, Great Pyrenees, half Maremma. My dogs that I bred are actually mostly Akbosh, a quarter Maremma and a quarter Great Pyrenees. Particularly because on my ranch, one thing I really wanted to do was have a short hair, easy to manage coat. I don't necessarily want a dog that I have to do a lot of grooming for. As far as housing and all the ranch things you need to have for your dogs, one thing is really solid fences. Livestock guardian dogs are they've been bred for thousands of years to work with humans, to work with the livestock, to live with the livestock. And they'll, with some of these herds, they'll travel miles a day with their herds roaming, different parts of wherever, the herdsmen have their sheep or goats or cattle. That being said, our, small ranch of 50 acres is actually not much roaming area for these dogs. And they want to make sure that the predators are gone. And so a lot of your dogs will try to leave your perimeter fences and push the predators further back. Especially a young dog who doesn't really know what they're doing, might be inclined to go check out what's going on next door. They just don't know what the predators are. So they are very known and extremely smart dogs. So they'll go over, under, and through things if you're not careful. Make sure you have a no-climb fence. If you can do hot wires, those are even more ideal. Definitely setting them up as young dogs to understand their perimeters is definitely a good thing. I've used the sports collars with my dogs, and with the caveat, don't do any dog training with a sports electric collar without a professional. You can ruin your dog really quickly. So these are the collars that provide an electric stimulation or a vibration or a tone or all three of the things above to teach your dog's perimeters, or even with training. It takes years of timing and experience with other trainers to sort of get and understand how to use those types of devices. But I've used the GPS perimeter fences that, say, the Invincible Fence Company will put in. This is a GPS system that works, and you sort of draw a border on your property that will define the area in which your dog's supposed to stay within the collar range. It's an awesome thing for a ranch dog. They work they work in vast ranges. Really all you need is your collar charged and the perimeter up, and it works on a GPS system. But you really need a professional to help you learn how to use that. A lot of my dogs work with different species. At Green Star Farm, we raise pigs, chicken, both broiler and laying hens, sheep and goats. So I have a variety of dogs that are doing a variety of things. The sheep and goats are not on this particular site today, but I'm literally training dogs right now so that I have a pack of 4 to run with the sheep and goats. And my biggest predators out here are coyotes, cats, and humans. So one thing that is also good with your livestock guardians dogs is don't introduce them to every single human. You do want them to be, you don't want a dangerous dog, and you don't need a dangerous dog for a livestock guardian dog, but you definitely don't want them to be okay with humans. Mainly, rustling is a really common crime, and that is the act of stealing sheep or goats and cattle off of a site. And even just around the corner, it's almost happened to us. So it's definitely something we're aware of, and we don't keep our sheep and goats anywhere with at least one dog now for that reason. Introducing your dog to your ranch. One main thing about introducing your dog to your ranch really depends on what dog you decide to choose. If you don't have a lot of dog experience, I really advise you going to a breeder who has older dogs, who've started older dogs, and spend some time on that ranch with the person and their dogs, and take an older dog home. You're going to pay a lot more, but the reality is it's not going to be any more money than you might spend ruining a dog or all the extra time it's going to take learning how to train that dog. So, you might spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a good livestock guardian dog that's trained, but I'll tell you, it's worth the investment. The investment is your time and your patience and loss of stock. You might lose chickens when you just first introduce your dogs to chickens if you have no experience with chickens. Even with experience with chickens, your puppies will play, and if you're not looking, you're going to lose a chicken. They play in a different way. A good poultry dog might grab your chicken and lick it to death, but a bad poultry dog grabs the chicken and kills it immediately. So there is a difference. But with herding dogs, it's the same way. I actually start all my herding dogs on poultry. I start them on broilers because broilers don't move very fast. Broiler is a meat chicken. They don't fly like a laying hen. They're mostly on the ground. They're slow. They sort of have to be confined because they're more vulnerable. And my herding dogs actually learn how to move chickens before they learn how to move anything else. And that's my first herding dog actually was the main purpose was to move chickens in the coop at night because and to find the ones that were roosting. I taught my herding dogs to move the chickens, to find the chickens when they're out. I've also taught my herding dogs to find baby animals. Like often when in the spring we have lambs and goat kids and they'll be sleeping in long grass and we can't find them. So I bring out my main stock dog and he will go and search the pasture for babies. And it is a time saver and worth every penny putting that time in there for them because boy, a missing baby, that's a loss of stock. Sometimes they don't get out, they won't make it through the night. When working with your livestock guardian dogs, some things that are really important. One, when you get your dog from your breeder, make sure that the dog was born outside or in a barn or somewhere with stock so that smell is imprinted on the animals. It's really important that your dog wants to stay with its stock. And so from as early on you can possibly do, keep your dog with or near stock. So if you have older dogs, definitely a pair of working dogs that are good, keep your puppy with them, with the stock usually until they're teenagers. And then once they start becoming, I guess, roughly 8 to 10 months, every dog's a little different. They'll get a little playful. That's when you might have to use things like tethers or fencing them in inside with the stock. A lot of people will do that. There's a lot of different options. There's a really good Facebook group. It's Working Livestock Dogs, Livestock Guardian Dogs on Facebook. It's a group I subscribe to. I've learned so much. There are a lot of people who have 10, 20, 30 years of experience with these dogs, and they've pretty much seen it all, and they can help you sort of sort out those little intricacies that might happen on your farm. When introducing an older dog to your stock, if you bring in a 3 or 4 year old dog, you don't just let your dog go in with the stock. Herding dog, anything, make sure you have some control. And what's really important is to make sure your dog always thinks you have control, regardless of whether or not you actually have control. It's all about the attitude, right? So I employ a lot of these tethers. Like this is a 10-foot tether. This will keep my big dogs from running after the stock. Sometimes I'll put a drag on it and a drag is just something heavy on one side so that the dog is limited in how fast they can run. Because sometimes you'll have a teenage dog that wants to run with the sheep as they run across the pasture, but you want to sort of discourage that kind of behavior. You don't want your dog playing with the stock. Those are their charges. They can play with the other livestock guardian dogs, but that's about all you want. A good livestock guardian dog pretty much just sits around most of the day, and that's what you want to encourage. Another option is like a 30-foot cable, and the reason this is nice is when you're introducing your dog to stock, you put this on their on a pull chain. Always use pull chains because then the correction comes from the dog. The dog's energy is what corrects it. You're not actually the one correcting it, and you can put this on the ground and step on it so that your dog can't run when you want to stop them. Another technique is with the 30-foot lead, they don't always know you're attached to it. So that's why it's really nice. You can hold on to it. They can be running around and doing things, but you can still grab that dog if they decide to run or play. Just be too active around the stock, which is what you don't want. when my often it's really good to keep the dogs when there's certain times of the day when they tend to be more playful, like early morning and late afternoon, usually when it's cooler. I'll put my dogs on a tether. These ones, you have to be careful to make sure you get a really strong tether, because if you get something that the dog learns it can chew through or it can bust, it will start doing that. These dogs are smarter than your normal companion dogs, and they've been bred that way. So you want to make sure you get this cable is made for a 200-pound dog, and the things that have broken on these are the clasps. So they still have the big dogs still have managed to break these things. So you just want to make sure you sort of get ahead of any problems before they start happening. Another thing with these dogs is they're super, super, super sensitive. So anything you can do with even your herding dogs is make sure to avoid bad behavior. Try to, set them up for success. And that's true with all of your dogs, but really with these dogs, if you go and start trying to yell at them when they're out playing with stock, or yell at them for touching something they're not supposed to touch, or for going out through the gate, they're just going to not like you and not trust you. And it's really important with these dogs, because of the intelligent levels, that you try never to shame them for doing something, but rather try to always reward them and do things that will encourage the good behavior. Don't let a teenage dog out with young stock that's going to run around and play if you don't have another dog in there to correct it. I set things up in such a way where I just use electric fences so that my dogs are always near stock. They don't have to be right in next to them to understand it. And once they're older and they've chilled out, then they can do that, and they stop, have the puppy zoomies. The puppy zoomies can be your worst nightmare when we're working with stock. Picking the right dog for your ranch is really important, or dogs. Often dogs work better in pairs. This is Shelby. She's a purebred Maremma sheepdog. And so, and I chose her, actually, she chose me because a neighbor had her and she was working by herself up on the hill, and she didn't have help, so she barked a lot. We brought her out here and paired her up with a couple of our other dogs. And Hunter, come here, baby. Come here, baby. Thank you. And Hunter is one of the dogs that were born here. He's mostly Akbash. His papa's half Maremma. And, the Maremma's a really sweet dog, but also fierce. Shelby is one of my most fierce dogs, except she's also one of our sweetest dogs. So it's really important. One thing that's right, even if you have, depending on how much space you're trying to protect. Small acreage, 3 acres, if you're just trying to keep, let's say, raccoons out of your strawberry field, you probably just need one ranch dog, one livestock guardian dog. You might even be able to do that with a herding dog, like an Australian Shepherd might be a good mix for that. But the livestock guardian dogs are nice because they're really good at staying outside. They have a really nice thick coat, and they're really good at making sure that home is protected. There's if you have much more than let's say 5 acres or more, really one dog is good, 2 dogs is better. One dog has a lot of responsibility, even if it's just 5 acres or 6 acres. Right now we're looking at a 3-acre spot. I have 2 dogs in it with 1,000 chickens. I have dogs spread out over the 50 acres, pretty much one every 3 to 4 acres, and they're all bordering each other, so it really feels like there's a lot more. And that's really because a dog by themselves will hang back with the stock and bark away the predators. This is really the best predator-friendly form of farming you can have, because the idea isn't to kill the predators, but to just defend the area and keep them away. So Hunter is actually a 20-month-old livestock guardian dog. He's not quite finished, but he's really close to being finished. And we have both his parents working on site. His father's out with livestock, with the sheep and goats right now, and his mom's out near the house with poultry. If you're in, say, cougar, we're in cougar country. We actually had a cougar a few years ago jump our fences, which are pretty tall, and steal a 40-pound plus pig. That was the last year I had no livestock guardian dogs. So that was probably, 6 years ago now that we had no dogs on. We had herding dogs, but no livestock guardian dogs. So if you have cougars or bears, you have big predators, you better have 2 or 3 dogs. You want to make sure your dogs are safe. And the best way to make sure your dogs are safe and comfortable is having a group of dogs, because dogs are pack animals. They work better. You're going to have one or 2 dogs that hang back with the livestock, and then you've got your perimeter dogs that'll run towards the perimeter. These guys really want to stay in my face. As far as the breeds, there are bigger breeds. There are breeds like the Kangal and it's called Cass. It's Caucasian. I can't remember the name. Those 2 dogs are tougher dogs, better for people will get those dogs 4 or 5 in a pack to work in like wolf and bear country to keep the livestock safe. The problem with those dogs is, although I still do one day want to try to get a Kangal dog out here, is they tend to roam more. And a lot of the breeds that we have here, the Akbash, the Marimas, they're right in your face all of the time. And they're not as much of a roaming. I'm really trying to keep the livestock guardian dogs have a tendency to want to move around. Shelby, she's a Maremma, and some things about introducing your livestock guardian dogs that are really important. If you have an existing livestock guardian dog and you're bringing in a new dog, one really important thing is to try to make sure your old dog is on neutral ground when you bring in your new dog. So your old dog, it's not wise to say have your old dog with the stock and then bring in a new dog, because they're going to naturally want to defend the stock. So Shelby here is my most aggressive dog. I can't actually keep her with a lot of other dogs. She's not allowed to be with any of the stock dogs because we never really know when she's going to get mad. She will actually grab a chicken and sit over it to protect them from any dog. And she takes her job a little too seriously sometimes. So when I introduced her to Hunter just 2 weeks ago, I actually took her on the clear 50 acres away, way far away from her stock, and let him run out on a leash and then let them join up. And then they came together back here. I walked them back together. It's a safer way because you don't want your dogs hurt. And you also want to set their relationship up for success. And that's your best way to do that. Okay, we're pausing. One thing with your livestock guardian dogs you want to take caution with is, what kind of hair do you want on your dog? If you're going to be in a climate where there's lots of snow, you might want something like a nice long coat, like a Great Pyrenees coat, or their Maremma has a really nice coat. But remember, if you've got foxtails or you have those little burrs and all the cockleburs and all those awful things, you're going to be cleaning those out in the summertime. A good, well-bred livestock guardian dog will have a coat that cleans out really well and sheds out really well. But some dogs don't. We have a Great Pyrenees that's fixed. She's half Great Pyrenees. She has an awful coat. It's a constant battle. You don't want to shave your livestock guardian dogs. They have a really special coat. They've got double coats. It insulates them in the summer and in the winter. So it's really important to keep the coats just brushed. I do let my dogs swim in the summertime if it's really hot. They always have a trough, something they can step into because these dogs get hot. But they'll also dig themselves nice holes in the summertime to keep themselves cool. So you'll have, in every pasture, there's some kind of a nice deep summer hole that the dogs will dig for themselves. Hey, enough. So this is a yoke Ragnar has on it, so he doesn't go under fences. Keeps him from, even if he's successful at digging, he never is successful at getting out, so it stops him from, that bad behavior. There's sometimes there's predators on the east side of the property, and that the dogs want to go get rid of them, and so they will try to leave the pasture and go, push the raccoon away or skunk. couple nights ago it was a skunk. We're all really sure of that. Come here. Come here. So one other very clever thing is what's called a jump gate. These are for livestock guardian dogs. You can look and search jump gate online for these, but I think there's something like 15 inches. Your sheep and goats won't get out of this, but your livestock guardian dogs can. So you can use this. A couple applications would be if you wanted to put their food in one area where the stock couldn't get to it. So you can make like a little enclosure so the dog can get in and out, but the livestock can't. Another application is when I first started with livestock guardian dogs, we had 50 acres and only 2 dogs, so we needed to be able to let the dogs get in and out of pastures to protect the other livestock that were in other pastures. So we did these, and we taught our dogs to go through them by sending the children through these gates, and the dogs followed. Because it was hard at first to teach our dogs, and so that's how we actually did it. Treating them works sometimes. Only 3 of my dogs know how to go through these now because I have enough dogs that I actually keep them in their pastures with their animals now. But this is a really awesome tool for excluding animals from the dogs. The dogs have a break because often some dogs won't even eat around their livestock because they're afraid that like the chickens will eat their food, for example. We use buckets to feed our dogs so that the dog's head can stay in the bucket safely without the chickens trying to eat their food. So this is just a really cool tool for livestock guardian dogs.